I never imagined my life could change so drastically in just a few short years. It all started 5 years ago when Emma and I were living what I thought was our perfect life together. We had met in college, bonded over our love for literature, and quickly became inseparable. After graduation, we moved to the city, found stable jobs, and eventually settled into a cozy apartment downtown. I was working as a graphic designer, and Emma had secured a position as a project manager at a reputable marketing firm. Life was good, or so I thought. Our relationship was strong, filled with love, laughter, and mutual respect. We shared dreams of buying a house, traveling the world, and building a future together. I never doubted Emma's fidelity or commitment. She was the kind of person who valued honesty and transparency, and I believed she felt the same way about me. That was until the day everything started to unravel. It began with small changes in Emma's behavior. She became distant, often staying late at work without a clear reason. Her phone was always on silent, and she grew defensive whenever I asked about her day. At first, I dismissed it as stress from work, but the signs kept piling up. One evening, after a particularly long day, I decided to surprise her by coming home early. As I walked into our apartment, the scent of her perfume lingered in the air, but she wasn't there. Instead, I found a series of text messages on her phone that revealed the truth. Emma had been having an affair with her boss, Richard. My heart sank. Richard was everything I wasn't: wealthy, confident, and charismatic. He had swept Emma off her feet with promises of a lavish lifestyle and unwavering support for her career. I confronted Emma that night, tears streaming down my face as she confessed everything. She was pregnant. My world shattered in an instant. I felt betrayed, hurt, and utterly lost. How could she do this to us? To me. Emma begged for my forgiveness, claiming it was a mistake born out of loneliness and the pressures of her job. She assured me that Richard meant nothing to her and that our child would be mine. But trust was broken, and I couldn't see a way to mend what had been shattered. We decided to separate, hoping that time would heal the wounds and clarify our feelings. The months that followed were the hardest of my life. I threw myself into work, trying to numb the pain and regain a sense of normalcy. I attended counseling sessions, seeking ways to understand what went wrong and how to move forward. Despite the emotional turmoil, something inside me refused to give up on Emma. I loved her deeply, and the thought of losing her forever was unbearable. Then, as if fate had a twisted sense of humor, my fortunes began to change. A project I had been working on for months finally took off, catching the attention of a major client. Overnight, I went from struggling designer to a millionaire. The sudden wealth brought new opportunities, but it also changed how people interacted with me. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years reached out, eager to share in my success. New connections were made effortlessly, and life seemed to be on an upward trajectory. Amidst the whirlwind of newfound prosperity, Emma reappeared in my life. One evening, as I was hosting a dinner party to celebrate my latest achievement, she showed up unannounced. Her eyes were filled with desperation, and she looked older, worn down by the years apart and the burden of our unresolved past. She approached me with a plea that took me by surprise. "I need you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please take me back. I can't provide for our child, and Richard, he's not the man I thought he was. I need you to pretend to be the father. I can't face him, and I can't face raising a child without your support." I was stunned. The idea of rekindling our relationship was tempting, but the circumstances were complicated. Richard was still around, and the child, if it was mine, would complicate everything further. I took a step back, trying to process her request. "Emma, why now? Why after everything that's happened?" She looked down, tears welling up in her eyes. "Because now I have something to offer. I can give you the life you deserve, the life we always dreamed of. Please, don't leave me to face this alone." Part of me wanted to rush to her side, to offer the stability and support she needed. But another part of me was wary. Could I trust her again? Could our relationship survive the scars of her infidelity? And what about the child? If it was mine, how would that change everything? Days turned into weeks as I grappled with the decision. I consulted with friends, sought advice from mentors, and even talked to a lawyer to understand the implications of such an arrangement. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that accepting Emma's plea would mean stepping back into a life that had caused me immense pain. But the thought of supporting her and possibly being a father kept pulling me back. One evening, unable to sleep, I decided to visit Emma. She was staying in a small house she had rented on the outskirts of the city. As I approached, I saw her sitting on the porch, staring into the distance. The sight of her brought back a flood of memories, both good and bad. "Hey," I greeted softly, taking a seat beside her. She looked at me, her eyes reflecting a mix of hope and fear. "Thank you for coming." We talked for hours, reminiscing about our past and discussing our present circumstances. Emma shared how her relationship with Richard had deteriorated. He had been controlling, manipulative, and now, with their affair exposed, he was nothing but a source of stress and embarrassment. She admitted that her decision to cheat was a mistake, one she deeply regretted. The pregnancy was a wake-up call, forcing her to confront the reality of her actions and the life she wanted for herself and our child. As we spoke, I began to see the genuine remorse in her eyes. It wasn't just a plea for financial support. It was a desperate attempt to salvage what little remained of our relationship. She wanted to believe that we could rebuild, that our love was strong enough to overcome the betrayal. After much deliberation, I agreed to help her. Not out of obligation, but because I still loved her and wanted to see if we could find a way back to each other. We decided to start slowly, focusing on co-parenting and rebuilding trust. I didn't want to rush into anything, but Emma's persistence and the undeniable bond we still shared made it difficult to hold back. Life began to shift once more. As I immersed myself in my new role as a millionaire, I also took on the responsibility of supporting Emma and preparing for the arrival of our child. It wasn't easy balancing my work with the emotional demands of our rekindled relationship. There were moments of doubt, times when I questioned whether I had made the right decision, but seeing Emma smile, knowing that we were trying to make things right, kept me going. Months passed, and Emma gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. Holding her for the first time, I felt an overwhelming sense of love and protectiveness. It was as if all the pain and heartache had led to this moment of pure joy. Emma and I worked tirelessly to create a stable and loving environment for our daughter, and slowly, the wounds of the past began to heal. However, just as things seemed to be settling into a new routine, an unexpected twist turned our lives upside down once again. Richard, unable to accept that Emma had left him, decided to take legal action. He claimed that I was not the biological father of the child and sought custody, threatening to expose the affair if I didn't comply with his demands. The legal battle that ensued was intense. Richard used every possible tactic to tarnish my reputation and undermine my position as a father. He brought in character witnesses, manipulated evidence, and even tried to exploit loopholes in the law to gain an upper hand. Emma was caught in the middle, torn between her past with Richard and her present with me. As the court case progressed, the strain on our relationship grew. The stress of the legal proceedings, coupled with the fear of losing our daughter, took a toll on both of us. We argued more often, the lingering pain of the past resurfacing amidst the chaos of the present. I started to wonder if our love was strong enough to withstand the external pressures being thrown our way. One evening, after a particularly heated argument, Emma confided in me her deepest fears. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Scared that I'll lose everything we've worked for, that Richard will destroy us." I took her hands in mine, trying to offer comfort. "We'll get through this together. I won't let him take our daughter from us." But deep down, I wasn't so sure. The legal battle seemed endless, and Richard's influence was vast. Just when it felt like things couldn't get any more complicated, a revelation came to light that changed everything. During a routine investigation into Richard's business dealings, it was discovered that he had been involved in fraudulent activities. Financial discrepancies, false reporting, and embezzlement came to the forefront, painting him in a completely different light. The case against him took an unexpected turn, and suddenly, the accusations he had made against me lost their footing. With Richard's credibility shattered, the court began to see him for who he truly was, a manipulative and deceitful man who had tried to use his power and wealth to control the narrative. Emma's testimony carried more weight, and the evidence against me was dismissed. The custody battle ended in my favor, and Richard faced his own legal consequences for his fraudulent actions. The victory felt hollow, though. The ordeal had left its mark on our relationship, revealing cracks that we had tried so hard to mend. Emma and I realized that while we had survived the storm, the trust that once bound us had been irreparably damaged. We had rebuilt our lives, but the foundation was no longer as solid as it once was. In the aftermath, we decided to take some time apart, giving ourselves the space to heal and reflect on what we truly wanted. It was a painful decision, but necessary for both of us to find our own paths forward. As we parted ways, there was a sense of bittersweet closure. We had been through so much together, and despite everything, a part of me would always care for her. Months turned into years, and our daughter grew up surrounded by love and stability. Emma and I maintained a cordial relationship, focused on being the best co-parents we could be. Occasionally, we would catch up over coffee, sharing stories about our daughter's latest milestones and our individual journeys. It was a different kind of relationship, one built on mutual respect and shared responsibility rather than the passionate love we once had. One day, as I was attending a business conference in another city, I received an unexpected call from Emma. Her voice sounded different, stronger, more confident. "Can we meet?" she asked simply. Curiosity piqued. I agreed. We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe near the conference center. When I arrived, Emma was already there, looking as composed as ever. We greeted each other with a nod, both of us aware of the significance of this meeting. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, "about us, about our past, and about the future. I realized that holding on to the pain only hurt us both. I want to find a way for us to move forward, not as romantic partners, but as friends who genuinely care for each other." I listened intently, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. "I feel the same way," I admitted. "We've both changed so much, and maybe it's time to embrace that change and find peace." We spent the next few hours talking, not about our past grievances, but about our personal growth and the lessons we had learned. It was a healing conversation, one that allowed us to finally let go of the bitterness and resentment that had lingered for so long. As we parted ways that evening, I felt a newfound sense of closure. Our relationship had evolved into something different, something healthier and more sustainable. We were no longer bound by the expectations of the past, but free to define our connection on our own terms. Looking back, I realized that our journey was one of love, betrayal, resilience, and ultimately, self-discovery. Emma and I had faced unimaginable challenges, but through it all, we learned to navigate the complexities of life and relationships. Our story wasn't a fairy tale with a perfect ending, but rather a realistic portrayal of two people trying to make sense of their shared history and individual futures. In the end, the unpredictable twists and turns that once threatened to tear us apart became the very experiences that shaped us into stronger, more understanding individuals. We both found happiness in different ways, supporting each other as friends and co-parents, and cherishing the bond we still shared through our daughter. Life had a way of teaching us that love isn't always about holding on, but sometimes about knowing when to let go and embrace the new possibilities that come our way. And as I watched our daughter grow, I knew that despite everything, we had created something beautiful together, something that would endure long after the storms had passed.